Well. So our president amekuwa kitrend kwa news akisema that akona plan ya kumake Kenya to be like Singapore.
We have what it takes as a nation. There is no reason why we cannot catch up with Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea. There is no reason we can catch up with them if we just make the right decisions.
This is a very good dream, but to be sincere, this is not a realistic dream. Singapore have done a lot, and their founders, and the founders of Singapore actually, they are the ones who laid the foundations of what the people of Singapore are enjoying right now. And for us to achieve that, we really need to do a lot, and we really need to consider what these guys did and even do better than what they did. So we would just want to do as a comparison between our country, Kenya, and what the founders of Singapore did, and see whether this dream is realistic or not. We are not saying that it cannot be done. Yes, it can be done, but how realistic are we towards this dream? How are we approaching it? You know, if our president William Ruto is going to be in office for the next 5 years, depending on the outcome of our elections in 2027, how sure are we that the next president who will come in will also have the same motivation to continue building the dream that our preso had, you know? So the reason as to why I'm saying this dream is close to impossible is that we already have what we really need to achieve this dream, but we are making unnecessary mistakes for us to achieve this dream. Even the guy that is claiming that he can make Kenya to be like Singapore, he really doesn't see these mistakes. Yeah, so number one thing that the founders of Singapore did is meritocracy. So meritocracy, it's actually ensuring that the people that you have in your government, they are the best people. If it's in education, you have the best teachers. If it is in science, you have the best researchers, best scientists. And they just didn't look for these best guys, but they also paid them well. So number one problem that we have in Kenya is corruption. And this is a very good plan of just doing away with corruption. Just employ the best civil servants and pay them well. Do we do that? No. What did William Ruto did when he got into the office? He went ahead to hire incompetent people who are not qualified for the jobs that they were given. And this is a mistake that he was doing, and he never saw it. And he's the same guy who has the dream of making Kenya to be Singapore. Were these guys being paid well? I'm really doubting if they are paid well, because we always see the teachers are on strike. The policemen are not paid well. That's why they wanaitishaga ya chai, because they are not paid well. If these guys were paid well and they were the best of the best, we couldn't have corruption in Kenya. And that is one thing that Singapore did. They ensured that they have eliminated corruption in this country, or rather in their country. And that is number one step that we can do as Kenyans to eliminate corruption by ensuring that we have the best civil servants and we are paying them well. That is a step one that we can do as Kenyans, because corruption is something that is really pulling our country back. And the only way of doing away with corruption is to ensure that you have recruited the best civil servants and you're paying them well. That is number one thing that William Ruto should do for him to start pursuing this dream of Singapore. So number two, these guys went ahead to improve their infrastructure. Well, but they never had enough land. They went ahead to do something called land reclamation. So land reclamation, this thing was not easy. It took them close to 3 years to just do a land reclamation of close to 38 hectares. So do we have land as Kenyans? Yes, we have a lot of land. We don't have to do even land reclamation like Singapore did. We already have enough land to do everything that we want to do when it comes to infrastructure and developing our infrastructure. On top of that, something that really fostered their infrastructure to be one of the best in the world is how they did their network. That is in terms of electricity, technology, road network, and even water. These guys considered doing all of this network underground. So most of their pipes or lines, they're underground. I suppose these guys were just planning ahead, planning decades ahead, because that is something that we have not considered doing in Kenya. So I think these guys were just thinking ahead, and I suppose it's because they hired one of the best guys, back to point one, choosing people who are the best, in what they do. That is step one. If you really want to develop a country, you can't have incompetent people and then expect to have tremendous results. Another thing that these guys are really working on is agriculture. Singapore has lots of buildings. When we are talking about land reclamation, already there was a problem of land. But can you imagine these guys are doing well in agriculture? So where are they getting their food from? So these guys have discovered another way of doing agriculture, and this method is called sustainea. Sustainea is just a controlled land for agriculture, and this is one of the best method of doing agriculture, because you get to use very small land, but you get to harvest more. Now, how do you do that? This method allows you to leverage buildings for agriculture. The way that you would maybe require a hectare of land to produce a certain amount of food. Now, you can decide to leverage buildings and do agriculture on each floor on that 1 hectare. This is an amazing method that was discovered with one of the scientists there. And we are still going to point number one: hire the best guys. So you would wonder, how are these guys also now like doing their irrigation to these plants? Of course, that's a problem because Singapore had a problem of water, or rather fresh water. So they were relying on the rains. But this is a problem that has been solved by the scientists over there. They are relying on now the seawater, but the seawater was not fresh water. So they had to do a research to just come up with a way of ensuring that you can transform that salty water to fresh water. So they are doing something called water desalination. That is a technique of now removing the salt from the water and ensuring the water is fresh for consumption and for irrigation. So I think we have, as a country, we already have what we really need to be like Singapore. But have we considered what they did to just lay the foundations to ensure that their country will work for the decades to come? This is something that we really need to consider if we really want our country to look like Singapore in decades to come. And telling us that you can make Kenya to be Singapore in the next 3 or 4 years to come, that's close to impossible, because when you look at the project called Marina Bay that Singapore did on the land that they reclaimed, this is a project that took more than 30 years. And that is just Marina Bay only. So you're telling us that you can really make Kenya to be Singapore in 3 years. That 3 years is the time that they used to do land reclamation for Marina Bay, and it was close to 38 hectares. So that's a very good dream, Mr. President, but it's not realistic. What you really need to do is to have a good structure of civil servants and ensure that you're paying them well, so that we can just do away with corruption. I think one of the dream that majority of Kenyans really wants to see it fulfilled is doing away with corruption. Corruption has become a very cliche thing in Kenya, whereby if you see a policeman who's not into corruption, you would wonder kwani nini mbaya na yeye. It's like the line that Giuliani did in one of his songs that inasema ni kubaya hadi kukikuwa kuzuri unashangaa kwani nini mbaya. So Mr. President, the first dream that you really need to work on is to eliminate corruption in our country. If you do away with that, then the developments will come in. Because for you to really do away with corruption, you really need the best of the best civil servants.